is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Your boy Rufus. We're back at it again, another installment of the Rufus Rundown podcast, episode 31 of this 5th season, which has by far been the most productive season on the Rundown in its history. So getting close to moving into the 6th years. December moves up quicker and quicker, and the end of the year moves up quicker and quicker. I'll be graduating college in December, which is crazy. I started this when I really began college, so kind of crazy. I mean, it's been inconsistent in times throughout, but realistically, this has probably been the best it's been as I try to approach graduating school, and not only doing this on the side of a lot of other broadcasting opportunities that obviously, if you follow me on social media, have been able to see in recent times. And of course, all those links are in the description for you to follow me on Twitter, Facebook. Well, not Twitter anymore, it's X, right? Follow me on X, TikTok, stuff like that. So, more content to come there, and we have a pretty loaded show for you today before NFL Sunday. Hopefully I can get this out in time before we get into yet another week of NFL football. We're going to have some NFL 3 up, 3 down, the power rankings going into today, but you have to stay tuned for that. We're going to have a couple of other stories that are certainly talking points in the sports world right now, but I want to start us off with a very unique, a very cool video to start here. It was, some college football to talk about. Kind of unfortunate, though, with the injury to Jordan Travis, and we have, Jaden Daniels tearing it up, other players playing really well, but it'll be more of those talks in terms of who's going to be beneficial to NFL teams and bowl season. We'll take a look at that, because Holy Cross, too, was able to, I was working replay for the Holy Cross games this weekend, and they captured a share of the Patriot League, so FCS playoff stuff, that'll be going on as well, too. Probably more talking points, too, considering where I'm working and what I'm doing there. For future points of the show. But nonetheless, Texas A&M, they went with a all Walkon kickoff team, the 12th man kickoff team, and well, I'll just let this clip speak for itself.
And Elijah Robinson sending out a all Walkon kickoff team in honor of the 12th man kickoff team that made its first appearance at Kyle Field against Cal to open up the 1983 season for head coach Jackie Sherrill, who was honored at halftime. The ball comes out! A huge hit, and the ball comes out, and Texas A&M has it.
Now, I'm not too sure there if that was a fumble. It looked weird to me. Sure, it was reviewed and everything, and it came out to be a fumble. But, yeah, there's some cool moments still to exist in the game of football and the game of college football. And again, all the walk-ons getting their ability to go make a play there. I mean, they probably put up with so much. I mean, they're not on full athletic scholarships. Their lifestyle is totally different. They're still committed to a Division I program. They still have an incredible amount of talent that helps the team practice. I'm sure everyday practice players, still maintaining the GPA, getting obviously a degree from an incredible college. But, this is after they fire Jimbo Fisher, right? And Jimbo Fisher was like the king of NIL when it came out. They were dishing out an incredible amount of money to top prospects with their boosters. And, well, they have 11 guys that walked on for free that were out there making plays. So maybe that's something that college football can look at as a whole in terms of this entire NIL and money moving for players and the transfer portal. At the end of the day, if you have the right guys and you install the right culture, you're going to find guys who can make plays. I'm not saying that talent isn't going to be a big portion of that, but I think it's really cool in this day of NIL and transfer portal, and I'm not getting playing time. I'm going here in 5th years with COVID and everything. 11 walk-ons going down and making a big play. At the end of the day, you can still do a lot with heart and effort, and I think that play by Texas A&M displaying that, I think, is a cool story to start us off on this podcast. Kind of rolling into, well, not kind of, we are rolling into it, and it's not going to be kind of anything. This is just flat out despicable what we have going on here. Now, Carissa Thompson, sideline reporter, she's put together a pretty good career for herself, and she has admitted to completely making up NFL sideline reports. Just completely making them up. Yep. If you were to say making up sideline reports based off of, like, research, that would be something. Like, something that you've seen. But she went on the part of my take podcast with, obviously, the Barstool guys, which, yeah, I mean, that's its own thing. I mean, like, I don't think any other show's getting this. And she said that I didn't want to screw up the report. So I was like, I'm just going to make this up. Actually, I'll just play the clip now for you guys of her speaking on it. And we'll see here once I get this clip queued up. We'll let it go. And, yeah, Carissa Thompson on making up sideline reports.
I've said this before, so I haven't been fired for saying it, but I'll say it again. I would make up the report sometimes because, A, the coach wouldn't come out at halftime, or it was too late, and I was like, I didn't want to screw up the report, so I was like, I'm just going to make this up because, first of all, no coach is going to get mad if I say, hey, we need to stop hurting ourselves. We need to be better on third down. We need to stop turning the ball
Pressure
over.
the quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. and do a better job of getting off the field. Like, they're not going to correct me on that.
Right.
So I'm like, it's fine. I'll just make up the
What are we doing? I mean, I've worked as a sideline reporter, not at her level, which would probably give me more, even if I wanted to, more leeway to do such a thing. Maybe that's why I would be staying at that level, but it's not something I did. I worked as a sideline reporter all summer. There's a couple things to touch upon when it comes to this disaster of reporting. And for me as a young individual trying to break into the field, I would never make anything up with that. I've worked as a sideline reporter. I did a lot of research. I had my laptop right over on the sideline, and I would be doing a ton of research. I did player interviews when it was time. I did not feel like it was right for me to really interrupt the flow of the game, interrupt the dugout when I was there. I was only considered an intern. It was a paid internship, but I wasn't at that level. So if I was at this professional level, even then I would kind of feel at times like, hey, there's a time and a place, but there's so much preparation you can do in terms of what you think the game's going to go, like how you think the game is going to flow. You can't just make something up. Like, hey, we have to get more pressure on the quarterback. No, like, why wouldn't you have preparation to be like, hey, they have this many sacks or they've given up this many sacks, which means we have to. I did not get the chance to speak with, Coach Belichick, but from the looks of this game, it appears that you'd have to protect Mac Jones more because he's taken 5 sacks. Like, what are we? That's you can do that because there's research behind it. Just because you didn't speak to somebody, and you can speak to anybody. Hey, we're speaking to this guy, and they said that their keys to the game was going this. Like, there's so many different ways that you could relate it back to a pregame conversation, a pregame meeting. Like, they do the media meetings during the week. I've been in those media meetings as I broadcasted out Holy Cross. Like, there's so many ways you could prepare better to take care of this situation if you don't get the chance to talk to a coach. You don't just make stuff up and put words in their mouth. And again, this is bad for young females trying to break in the field. I'm in those classes with these young females trying to break into this field. This is such a bad look overall because now who's going to think this is okay? For myself trying to break into the field, I know how to, we've done live interviews on the air as announcers, as play-by-play in color. We've interviewed coaches. We had the pre-meetings. I've never put any words in any coach's mouth. I take notes from those meetings. In terms of the sideline point, like I said, I did a ton of research, did a ton of interviews, understood and prepared for those interviews. Like, preparation in this field is one of the biggest things. It's something that's a talking point in class. I think overall, like, the more prepared you are, the more you can inform someone of something that they don't know is an absolute win. But to go out there and to blatantly make stuff up, this fake it till you make it thing. No, and as a male too, I'm not gonna, throw shit at too much. But like, if she's I'm sure she's done a lot of good work too. But like, for me too, to look at it where it's just like, if females are competing in this field and they really can do the research and they can do it. And if they can do it with a pretty face on top of the research that I'm doing, they're gonna be on the sideline. They're gonna get the screen time over me. I'm not saying I'm not a handsome fella, but I mean, come on now. I mean, there's other people that are gonna sell over me. But if they're just out there making stuff up, I think that's unfair to any of the young males trying to break into the field as well, too. So I think it's just a really bad look for journalism, for announcing overall, because, well, I have another clip here. Someone was able to, I believe it was Funhouse that pulled up this clip here of her past sideline reports, and then the credibility of it is now totally changed, right? So I'm going to play this clip for you here, and was it all scripted? Was it all fake? Was it... did she actually talk to the coaches? I don't know, but give it a listen here.
intended for Greg Jennings. Let's go down to Carissa Thompson.
Well, guys, catching up with both coaches at halftime for Coach Del Rio. As you might imagine, it's all about getting pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He said he liked the game plan that they had headed in. They've just done a poor job of executing it. Offensively, they have to be more aggressive. For Coach McCarthy, on the other hand, you guys, he was so adamant about a communication breakdown. We saw that right before the half with Finley. He said a headset actually broke. It's all about communication on the Packers side.
That's John Gilmore, and Gilmore looks to have stretched for the first down. Let's go down to Carissa Thompson.
Well, speaking to both coaches at halftime for Coach Gruden, he said the Chiefs have been able to run, throw, they've mixed it up, they've been able to do whatever they want. We have to play better football. For Herm Edwards, he says with this young group, we got to keep their focus. They're playing with great energy, and we got to avoid giving up that big play.
So, did she actually speak to those coaches? Was that a real thing? Did he? So that's why this is such a. And Aaron Andrews has admitted to it too. I think it was not exactly making up, but she did agree, admit, I should say, that she did change around some of the words that coaches said. You just can't do this. It's just a bad look for everybody. It certainly hurts your credibility. It hurts the credibility of sideline reporters and people and journalists in the field overall. And it's funny, too, how you look at this, too, and not to get political here, but how much everybody's worried about a sideline reporter doing it in sports, but yet when it comes to, like, hard news reporters like the CNNs and the Fox News of the world, that nobody questions those. Like, they just go all in and believe the fake news one way or the other. But when it comes to sports, now everybody's up in arms like, we can't allow this. But when it comes to their favorite news source putting out what they want to believe, it's okay. But that's totally besides the point. Not going to get too political here. But yeah, I just think especially as a young individual trying to break into the field more and more, I think this hurts everybody overall. This isn't just hurting female sideline reporters. I think it does more so than the whole field of journalism as it is itself. Because I'm in those classes. I've worked with some young females that are trying to break into the field and have goals. I mean, I know coming up in the schedule at Holy Cross, there's some women color announcers too that are going to be doing reports with coaches, and it's going to be live on the air too. So at least that's a plus from what I've seen from what we've done with the production at Holy Cross. I really can't believe that. Not only that she did it, but that she admitted to it. That it's the doubling down there. It's like it'd be one thing if you were doing it and getting away with it, but then to go out there and admit it, and the fact that she's like, "Well, I haven't been fired for it before, and I've admitted it," and I'm like, "What?" So for someone who does believe in credibility, who does want to take the steps in this field in the right way and prepare and provide facts and provide true news to people on broadcast, and I try to do that all summer. I've tried to do that my time now with Metro Cable Access, with my time on ESPN Plus and SN Plus as well, and those pregame meetings with the coaches. Talk to many of the coaches from both teams, talking to SIDs. It takes effort. You have to set up your schedule. You have to know what questions to ask. You have to know how to interview, all the above. But I never made anything up. And I could never imagine myself doing it. So I think it's just an incredibly tough look for the profession. And I think it's wildly unfortunate that it went down this way. But we will move on. I don't want to stay too negative on this for too long to continue to crush her, but we're moving on to banning the hip drop. So there's a report that the hip drop form of tackling is getting attention, obviously, and it may soon be banned, according to Diana Rossini. And the NFLPA is publicly against outlawing it because it believes the play will be too tricky to officiate. But a league source told Rossini that the discussion of banning the tackle is already on the table of contents of things to discuss in the offseason with the NFL Competition Committee. Now, I'm going to play a clip here and talk over it a little bit of Mark Andrews. This is the injury. Now, Jordan Travis had a pretty gruesome injury, too, to the hip drop, which I'm not going to put the video up of. But with Mark Andrews, I have it here and supersized a little bit. And it's going to kind of segue into my next point here, too, with the NFL and kind of what they're talking about. But here we go. We're going to take a look here at the Mark Andrews play, right? So here it is. Mark Andrews with the catch, and Wilson doesn't come in, doesn't helmet to helmet, nothing. Everybody does kind of wrap and roll up on Mark Andrews. So you can see the roll in the back of the ankle, too. There's been some other angles of this on ESPN, too. This is the angle as well here. But you see him here. He goes for he tracks the near hip and rolls down. He's not. Now, this is what I've talked about, too, with some of the injuries that are happening to the quarterbacks, right? Where you don't want head-to-head injuries, right? You don't want the CTE. You don't want the concussions. What other choice do they have but to wrap and roll here? Now, I know that coming from behind, it kind of looks like no, I personally don't see, like, football is a violent game at the end of the day. And again, it's going to allow me to segue into this Josh Jacobs point. Like, is tackle football dying? Are we just going to put flags on the hip now? Because he tracked it. Like, I've been taught, tracked into your hip. We have the hot tackling, so you don't put your head into the tackle. Logan Wilson and Mark Andrews, they have no head injuries going on there. He just gets rolled up on in the tackle. I mean, tracks the near hip, wrap, roll. That's what we're taught to do. As far as I'm concerned, right? Am I crazy as someone who's played football? Like, I'm pretty sure it's what I was taught to do, to make a tackle there. So I'm wildly confused. We're going to take a look at the Josh Jacobs play as well here, too, because there's more news with Josh Jacobs, so it allows me to make these points together. So this is the Josh Jacobs play that he was fined $21,000 for. Back-to-back weeks, he's been fined over $20,000. He kind of lower the crown of his helmet there in 3rd and inches. That's what gets him a $20,000 fine. So you cannot have it both ways here, right? You cannot be fining him for doing stuff like that and then saying we have to ban the hip drop. You can't be doing both because again, so if he's gonna run like that and you're not, if you're gonna fine him for running like that, you have no choice but to hip drop tackle. So you have nothing. So if he's gonna run like that, right, you have no. And you don't want head to head, right? And you don't want to get called for targeting of the sorts, right? You have no choice but to hip drop tackle with him running like that. So I don't see it. So you're gonna try and find that and find the hip drop. What are you gonna have? You can't hip drop and you just have to run upright. Like, what are you gonna have? Just they're moving this towards flag football. I know it's gonna be the Olympics. I know it's a big deal with that. I just can't. Again, over $20,000 for this 3rd and inches, like, that's football. I'm not saying the CTE is football, but, like, this is football right here. 3rd and inches is the true inception of the game. And then the hip drop tackle, they're literally telling you can't hit with head-to-head contact anymore. You're trying to get your head in the right place where there's no more head injuries. The guy gets rolled up on. It's unfortunate. But how do you want him to tackle? How do you want us to move off of this? I really don't understand it. I'm really kind of missing on what that is. So again, Josh Jacobs with this short run. I'm going to go back to the Mark Andrews clip as well too here after we get this look at Josh Jacobs once again. Fined over $20,000 for this, and he complained about it too. They didn't fine him more for complaining about it, but they did fine him for kind of committing the same act once again. Here we go. One more look at the Mark Andrews injury. Once it comes around, once again, the Logan Wilson tackle. You tell me if there's anything wrong in this and it's a dirty play. Is that a dirty play or is that just a clean tackle? I think it's a clean tackle. I mean, from having played the game, this is something that we've been taught to do. This is how we've been taught to tackle. So, again, The Athletic has more on what's going on here in terms of what they're going to be doing about the hip drop tackle. So, I don't know. I really don't know. There's more articles from The Athletic. Of course, I don't have my subscription on here, so I can't go through it. But just, some tough news to be going through here on the rundown. Like I said, we're getting into this. We have NFL 3 Up, 3 Down coming up, but we also have some LSU basketball news. But if you're interested in my picks that I make today, I will not be making picks in the podcast. I will be releasing another article on my website. Lucas's Locks is a new trend that I am starting, and I will be looking into my picks for the week, my 3 locks, and then the rest of the picks Thursday and beyond. So Sunday to Monday is what we are looking at in terms of that. And, of course, last week I'd have to go look at the record. I don't think it was a bad week for me. Of course, I'm first in my pool this season. I should have been sharing these all season. I'm averaging about 8 wins per week, depending on how many games we're picking. Thursdays and overseas games not involved with that pool. So be sure to stay tuned for that on the website. Of course, the link to the website is in the description of these videos when I do post them. So, again, be sure to stay tuned in. Now we have some LSU basketball. And the team is a mess. The team is an absolute mess. So, Angel Reese is now away from the team. Allegedly, she's academically ineligible, right? So, she's been suspended from the team. It's alleged that it's due to a low GPA. And now Flau'jae Sanders' mom and Angel Reese's mom have been beefing about it on social media, going back and forth. So, again, it kind of seems like it's underreported. I know that the article I read on Barstool was kind of like the first that I'd seen of it. I know they had mentioned that I'd seen a Bleacher Report thing that she was away from the team. But Kim Mulkey was, again, like drawing attention away from it. She wears the flashy suits to draw attention away from her players. He's a unique coach, that's for sure. And then they asked her, like, hey, you want me to and then she said, you want me to explain why? It was very obvious why Angel was not in uniform. Angel was a part of the basketball team. We hope to see her sooner than later. I'm not going to answer anymore. That's it. That's all y'all need to know. On the absence, and now they brought in Haley Van Lith, who's one of the best basketball players in the NCAA already when she was at Louisville. And like I said, now like one of her teammates, the teammate's mom's going at it on social media, and just on both sides. And it's like they've been going at it on Instagram stories. And again, Angel is carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. But it's really just GPA. Can we just go to class? Yeah, Mulkey won't talk about it. They lost their opener to Colorado. They got upset. I mean, I'm sure they were favorites to repeat as well too. So I don't know. It just seems crazy to me. I'm pretty sure Angel Reese. I mean, LSU as a whole, everything with Libby Dunn down there, Angel Reese, some of the NIL stuff. Angel Reese doing the Sports Illustrated shoots, and obviously all over with NIL, all over magazine covers, and now the got to go to class too. And I believe there was a conversation about how she wasn't going to class because how famous she was. It was the same with Livy Dunn, I think, too, the famous gymnast from LSU as well, that they weren't going to class because of how they had to deal with people, or the fact that they couldn't deal with people was what their whole issue was with going to class. They were not going to in-person classes. They were taking online classes only. So maybe that's part of it too. Libby Dunn seems to be doing okay. She's competing, doing her thing. I mean, gymnastics is a little different from basketball, but this is one of, if not the best female basketball players on the planet right now, and especially in terms of the college basketball game. So LSU has a super talented roster. I'm sure they can hold their own until then, but if the locker room falls apart at this level, then how are you going to put that back together? So I like Mulkey for sure, and I like what she does in terms of like defending her players. Don't get me wrong. But obviously when it comes time that she has expectations for players to do the bare minimum, you got to go to class. You got to take care of your schoolwork. So I guess it's not really going to class, but certainly has to take care of her schoolwork. And you are a student athlete. And I kind of like this idea of like, no matter how like much we fantasize, we make stardom of all these college athletes, which they deserve, by the way. They put a lot of work in. They're super talented. They're still collegiate student athletes. We're still sending the message that you're still going there, going to school while going there. We're not just making this like sub-professional sports. At this point, it kind of is, but you still have to take care of what it means to be a student athlete. And that's not just because you're at a national championship school or because you're going to D3. It doesn't matter. The NCAA as a whole now battening down the hatches to make sure that this is all taken care of. And I like it. I like the message that the NCAA is sending in this regard. And I can only hope in terms of someone who's been watching a lot of women's college basketball this season, Holy Cross, really good, working in the control room there, and just overall being more interested with college sports as I've been able to broadcast in it more and more, and hoping I can get on a game this season there. You like to see her back. She's a talented player. I think that you want the most talented people in the court, and you want her to send the message and set a good example. And maybe this be a story of, hey, look what happens when you don't take care of it, but when you do, what you can accomplish. And again, you can be a role model to a lot of young female basketball, a lot of young athletes in general, whoever wants to look up to you. You can be that role model. You can bounce back from this. I would not like to see it go the other way and her not set that example. There's a lot of deeper stories here with people that can set the example, especially with Carissa Thompson too, especially with females in sports too, and how they are looked at, and how they're trying to continue to break down the barriers more and more, right? You would like to see more credibility, but if you have this entire dramatic situation going on at the peak of women's college basketball, which is still picks up a lot of traction, especially come time with March Madness, and especially with her last season, and not being able to set an example for younger athletes that are coming after her. And then you have Carissa Thompson with young females that are trying to break into the field. Now it hurts their credibility as well, too. You do not like to see this, especially for something that these sports, females in sports overall, have built up so much credibility. You would not like to see it come crashing down on a couple of different sides in terms of note of athletes and reporters as well. So you don't want to see the journalism side discredited. You don't want to see the athletic side discredited. But overall, it would require some serious work on the other side of these situations to prove that the other way. Now we got NFL 3 up, 3 down to close up this show. And we're going to start with the negative. We're going to start with the 3 down. 3 down, we have 3 teams: the Panthers, the Bills, and the Jags. Now, this is not counting the fact that I would count the Bengals, but the Bengals will probably make it on the upcoming Thursday. Well, not the Thursday, but they played on the Thursday, which is a part of the next week. So then the next episode, when I break it down, they'll most likely be a part of that, considering the season-ending injury to Joe Burrow. But this is going based off of the week before. So I want to say that's week 10. So we're going based off of week 10, not week 11, which the Bengals game was a part of. So, like I said, with the 3 down, it being Panthers, Bills, and Jags. And why are the Panthers number 1? Because not only did they outright lose to the Bears, but because the Bears have their pick for this upcoming season, they're now favored to have the number 1 overall pick. So you lose not once, but twice. You double down with now losing your pick for next year in that DJ Moore trade, in the trade for Bryce Young. Maybe the fact that I'm actually saying DJ Moore before Bryce Young tells you all you need to know about how Bryce Young's performed this year. But obviously there's not a lot that you can do with that team down there overall. Just, I don't know if there's any other quarterback there. But then again, a lot of it comes down to young quarterbacks. If sometimes you just know, when you know, if they have it, they have it, and then they can overcome a lot. A lot of young quarterbacks like C.J. Stroud has overcome a lot as well too. But obviously just different pieces in place there for both of them. So yeah, the Panthers, they lose on the field. Bryce Young has not looked good, and their odds of the number 1 pick continue to fall down. Now, what would you do with that number 1 overall pick? I'm not sure if they actually would truthfully need it, but the odds of that top pick being up there because the Bears actually win there, and the Bears have access to it, and they continue to lose. It's looking like a really, really good deal for the Bears when they trade it down. Now, will they take a quarterback this time around? I don't know. They're going to have to. It's looking like a really good deal in terms of the potential of it, but if you make the wrong decisions in terms of drafting, that goes right out the window. And really, you just offset with 2 really, really bad franchises that are making bad decisions and cannot build upon anything. And then we're looking at the Bills. The Bills losing once again to drop to 500. A lot of penalties there at the end. A lot of turnovers in this game, and a lot of James Cook fumbling the football around was certainly strange to watch. Luckily that one of them actually bounced back. But 3 fumbles on the night. They lost 2 of them. That's certainly something. They're not really forcing a ton of turnovers either as a defense. So Josh Allen, 2 more interceptions as well too. So looking at 4 total turnovers from the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen, once again, this is something that he's supposed to be good enough to overcome. He had the rushing touchdown, he had a passing touchdown, only threw for 177 yards, and that Broncos defense certainly coming together. Russell Wilson, high completion percentage, just sub of 200 yards, but 2 touchdowns in the night. He gets sacked a couple times. Again, Russell Wilson flat out outplayed Josh Allen. Now this is a couple games running here where the Broncos now itching closer to getting into the playoff hunt if they can continue their winning ways. Certainly from the beginning of the season, where I thought Russell Wilson was no longer it, and I also thought that the entire team kind of just falling off, especially losing 70-20 to the Dolphins. But it looks like they've certainly flipped it around, and I don't think that makes them Super Bowl favorites. But certainly Sean Payton, when he had said that Nathaniel Hackett had done one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. I did say at that point too, hey, it might take a little bit of time for him to right the wrongs here, for him to actually get this flipped around, which it might not be a complete winning season. I think this could be a fringe playoff team, the Broncos, if they get on a run, if they can. I mean, they have a legit quarterback when Russ is playing at this level, so maybe he is a wash. I kind of thought he was, and I thought it was past the point of repairing it, and Sean Payton, what he had to deal with, but it looks like now whatever Hackett had there, he's finally been able to work the kinks out of that and iron out the wrinkles, and has since progressed to kind of more of a winning formula. And again, for the Bills, and I guess that's kind of a partial 3 up there for the Broncos. I could give them an honorable mention. But for the Bills, it's just a continued collapse. I mean, they got rid of Ken Dorsey right now. Joe Brady's going to take over the play calling duties. And again, offensively, they haven't been that bad. The defense hasn't been good enough. And again, you can statistically look good on offense, but the turnovers are just, you can't turn the ball over at the rate that they do. I just don't think there's any type of chemistry on either side of the ball. Trevon Diggs was treating out that, Stephon Diggs got to get out of there. You have so much talent on this team. You cannot continue to waste it like this. And I'm sure Sean McDermott, they're looking at his job. He certainly has to be on an incredibly hot seat at this point, getting rid of Ken Dorsey. Obviously, Dorsey wasn't as good as what Brian Daboll was to them, and who knows how long Daboll was going to be able to stay in New York, although this year I don't really think it's traditionally his fault. But, yeah, Buffalo certainly should be doing more, and they're just not doing enough. And especially with you're going to spoil a quarterback like Josh Allen, but it's at the point now, too, where it's like, how talented is Josh Allen if he continues to take these shots and turn the ball over? His decision-making has certainly been an issue. Those people will tell you that statistically it's not a big issue with Josh Allen, but overall, it certainly is a problem with, the decision-making and the turnovers. That's the biggest issue right now for the Bills, and they've yet to recover from that. So moving on to the last 3-down team, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, this was a game that I had actually picked on Lucas's locks. It was one of my locks of the week to take the 49ers over the Jags. But it was only like a 3-point spread. It kind of seemed like something the bookies knew that I didn't, and that's why I went with the 49ers. But Brock Purdy, 3 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. Really good day for him. Trevor Lawrence threw 2 interceptions. I mean, offensively, they just looked lost overall. I mean, Kirk had a good day, but only putting up 3 and just getting flat out bullied. I mean, they didn't even look close. I mean, they had 2 turnovers as well because Kirk had a fumble as well as Trevor Lawrence. They just did not look like the same team. They did not look like this Super Bowl caliber Jaguars team that we've seen. Now they're below 500 at home, and the Niners did that on the road. Again, the Niners coming off the bye. Kyle Shanahan, I believe, is now 37-16 with the Niners coming off a bye. So that's part of it too, but it does not mean that you have the right to get embarrassed on the road by the Niners. I mean, you have a perennial top 10 quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and it didn't matter. Kyle Shanahan had the system ready to go for the 49ers. Brock Purdy came out and responded to a lot of the critics well. Had some of those, had some guys back healthy, obviously, coming off that bye. But they've set themselves up well because Deebo Samuel being back in some form of a capacity. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, still doing his thing. His touchdown streak broken, but yet still over 100 total yards of offense on right around just over 20 touches total on the day. So really productive day from him. And then George Kittle doing his thing, was out there, was completely uncovered on his touchdown catch and run. And yeah, again, I guess kind of you look at the positives of the Niners, and on the flip side of the Jags not even being able to put a touchdown on the board, only getting the 3 points. It's bad. It's bad. It's a team that I'm not saying they're going to win every game, but it's how you lose too, right? It's bad losses that you have too, which with this one certainly raise your eyebrows a little bit, and you take a step back, like, okay, there's some teams that are legit out here, and there's some teams that are maybe knocking on the door, but don't really belong in that conversation just yet. Maybe myself and others would rush the Jaguars into that conversation, and that's kind of the way it's looking at that point, at least for me. Now we're looking at the 3 up as well too, and the Broncos and Niners very well could have been in that conversation, but I got some teams that again, they move up. It's standings-wise, too, right? Just like the position that they're in. And Pittsburgh Steelers, first and foremost, so while they made it certainly close with Green Bay, they're now 6-3 on the season, and they've been outgained, I'm pretty sure, in every game they've played in. They still have a above 500 record. Kenny Pickett has certainly not been noteworthy in his second year taking over the team, and they have 2 running backs that are kind of splitting touches and splitting productivity, but again, they're being outgained in these games in terms of Green Bay's receiving, and they had over combined receiving almost 300 yards there, 280 yards passing from Jordan Love, and then 116 on the ground between Love, Jones, and Dillon. Compared to Pittsburgh, right over 200 yards on the ground, but only 126 through the year with Kenny Pickett. It's kind of a downside for that there, but the fact that they're able to keep winning, right? You have a really, really strong defense there with T.J. Watt getting after the passer, Cam Hayward back and healthy, Alex Highsmith rushing the passer as well. They have Joey Porter Jr., who they had drafted. They moved some athletes around, and they have improved. They've not just improved defensively, but they've maintained their defensive status. And while offensively they might not be good enough, it certainly has them in a good position with Burrow going down for the season and Deshaun Watson going to be out for the season as well too. You still have your quarterback healthy. Their point differential spread, they've allowed a lot more points than they've scored themselves. Again, it's hard to think, but overall 6-3, it keeps them pretty good in the playoff picture. And as long as you can make it into the dance, you can do some damage. So that's why my Steelers are my top movers this week in my 3-up power rankings. Now the Detroit Lions back on track. They're going to be my number 2 team now. It was a push on the spread with the 3 with the Chargers, but in a little bit of a higher score than I'd like. But overall, it's a talented Chargers team that they're able to go on the road and beat. They're now 4-1 on the road. I think it shows something to a team, and it's a testament to their mental strength to go on the road and win like that. So 4-1 on the road. Jared Goff, over 300 yards passing, 333 to be exact, with 2 touchdowns. Good day for him. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, 3 touchdowns combined, then over really 200, almost 200 yards combined there as well too. It's going to be just shy of 200 combined yards on limited touches. They were catching passes too. Gibbs had 3 catches for 35, so over 100 yards total on the day for Gibbs, and then over 100 yards rushing for David Montgomery. You can't draw it up much better than that. Of course, it's against a weak Chargers defense, and again, Justin Herbert, really, this is something that I said in my Lucas's Locks, so please go take a look at the articles and take a look today when I post mine out there. Herbert over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. He lit it up, but it's just not going to be enough. I mean, Keenan Allen, once again, lighting it up too. I mean, this defense is so susceptible, and for the creativity that the Lions possess with their play calling with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell being able to get them to bite some kneecaps and fire it up, they're able to get it done, and I still think they're a true Super Bowl contender. It was a tough loss to the Ravens when they had it, but the Ravens are also up there as one of the best teams, if not maybe the best team in the NFL, certainly with the best defense. So the Lions still have a ways to go, but certainly think they continue to warrant that discussion of being in that Super Bowl bubble, and I think that win over the Chargers is a road win, a close road win, and kind of a shootout in a sense. You have the quarterback play that can match up with a lot of other pieces that you have built in there in Detroit, and it's why they're number 2 on my 3-up teams. And for the final 3-up, I mean, there's a lot of teams that could make it into this conversation, but considering the success that they've had coming off of the Josh McDaniels firing, now the Raiders 500, 4-1 at home, now making home a fortress. Aiden O'Connell sacked a couple times, threw a pick. The Jets defense certainly keeping it close. I think that Zach Wilson deserved a little better in this one, but at the end of the day, it's a victory for Vegas. They certainly were trying to kind of throw the game away. They had a couple of fumbles there, but only losing one of them, and O'Connell throwing 1 interception. So turnover battle really ended up being almost split there, I believe. Yeah, no, it was they had one more turnover than the Jets did, but overall it was an ugly game in prime time on Sunday night. But the Raiders able to overcome. I believe they were The Jets were favored, and this was a pick that I took as well, too. The Raiders and go on to win outright. And while there's a lot going on there, and it's the interim head coach. The last time the Raiders went with an interim head coach in Bisaccia, they ran it all the way to the playoffs, and he handled himself well, and they did not end up hiring him. They went with McDaniels, didn't go around. Maybe it'll change this time with Antonio Pearson. I would only hope that that's the right decision for the Raiders, for an organization that had struggled to make the right decision, especially in that department. Josh Jacobs kind of back on track over 4 yards per carry. Didn't get himself in the end zone, but did go for over 100 yards. So if they can, get this run game going again, they certainly have the pass rush on defense that I think can. You can right a lot of wrongs with a pass rush. You can force turnovers that way. It helps your coverage in the secondary, and it helps your defense get off the field on third down. So with the pass rush that they have with Max Crosby doing a load of the work there, I certainly do believe that that'll right a lot of the wrongs as long as they don't turn the ball over offensively. And it looks like maybe not this game being the perfect example of it, but it looks like the locker room is kind of on the same page here. And as long as there's some chemistry in this team, there's certainly a lot of talent. Maybe obviously not enough to win a Super Bowl type talent, but considering the picture in the AFC, the Raiders very well could find themselves in a playoff spot as well too. But obviously, there's still a lot of time before we're able to finalize that. But overall, I was really, really impressed with the performance, not just in this game because it wasn't that pretty of a game, but overall, since the fire of McDaniels. Sometimes it's 1 week and then that energy is gone, but 2 weeks in a row for the Raiders since firing Josh McDaniels. I like that as my final 3-up team. Thank you for tuning in today on the Rivers Rundown podcast. Hope you enjoyed, and a little bit of the different vibes we have here with the way I was running videos and stuff. Different production quality now that I've learned over time trying to put this together. And it was a lot of fun for me, and it's continued to be a lot of fun. So Season 6 should certainly bring a lot more. But it's your boy Rufus. Be sure to follow your boy on social media all over X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. All of those are going to be linked in the description of the pod and wherever you get this podcast. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Drop a review in the podcast as well too if you're on any of those subscription-based platforms. But until next time, it's your boy Rufus.